Hi, I'm Christopher, a research software engineer with Research Software Workshops, and it's a very warm welcome to part 9 of Git for Collaboration. The link to the material is at the bottom, and if you go to the GitHub Actions and Continuous Integration section, you'll reach this page. Now, it's quite common when working collaboratively that you need to automatically run some tasks when people make changes to the project. So these tasks could include maybe automatically testing that the project is still sane, so maybe running some tests against all documents in the repository, or it could include generating reports automatically, or generating websites or other output documents by assembling the files in the repository. Or it could be that you want to maybe automatically run an analysis and regenerate graphs whenever new data is added. Continuous integration, or CI, is the name given to the set of automated actions that can be performed against the files in a repository whenever there is a new commit. There are many continuous integration services, for example Travis and GitHub Actions, and you can also set up and run your own via GitLab or GitLab Runner, and the links to these are all here. Now we're going to look at GitHub Actions because it's a free service, and of course it's integrated very closely within GitHub, and so it just works very, very well. Now you can set up an action that will run on a range of operating systems, Windows, Mac and Linux, against a range of software. So for example, actions that will be testing your software on Python 3.7, 3.8, 3.9, R, C++, or even loading in software for generating websites or running generating documents, etc. So pretty much anything you want to run on any of the three main operating systems, you can run within a GitHub action. Now, there are some limits, but those limits are pretty loose, and to be honest, I've never actually run into them. They are described on this page, which we can just quickly have a look at. And that's because you have GitHub Actions for free and then paid GitHub Actions. So each job can run for 6 hours, and the job will be terminated after 6 hours. But to be honest, 6 hours is a really long time. An entire workflow, which is composed of subjobs, can run for 72 hours, which I think is amazing. And then there's a limit of the number of jobs that can be running at the same time. So in theory, if you have lots of commits at the same time, then you can actually have lots of actions happening in parallel. So for example, for free, you can have a maximum of 20 jobs, 5 of those are max. And again, if you're on professional or you're paying, then it's a little bit higher. But again, to be honest, I don't really notice these. And look, you can run 256 jobs per workflow. Just incredible. So you never run into these limits whatsoever. Now, you also get unlimited minutes of action, so you won't get billed for anything if your repository is public. If you have a private repository, then you can have 2,000 minutes of actions per month, which again is a very large number of actions. And, again, there are information which is here, which we'll just have a quick look at. So this is billing. So effectively, you can store up to 500 megabytes of data, and you get 2,000 free minutes a month if this was with a private repo. And then you can get more minutes basically as you sort of go up further and you pay for sort of higher versions of this. And there's a minute multiplier, so 1 Linux minute is the equivalent of 10 macOS minutes, and that's 2 Windows minutes, which is how they account for the different prices of those operating systems. And of course, if you don't want to use a cloud-based service or a cloud-based server, you can actually connect your own computer to GitHub and use it as a self-hosted runner. So in that case, you're actually running all of the actions on your computer every time you run the commit. Now, the actions themselves are composed into workflows. And so effectively, you'll have an action will start a workflow, and then the workflow will be a sequence of tasks which are performed one after another. Each task, each action in the workflow is 6 hours, and I said the whole workflow is 72 hours maximum, but all of the actions I've ever run have been of the order of minutes. I think my longest one has been like 30 or 40 minutes, so I never run into any of this. Now, the actions that you could use could be for anything, so you could use them for compiling and testing software, creating the actual installation packages, so on Python actually making those Python pip packages, auto-generating documentation, rendering and uploading a website, tons of stuff. And indeed the MetaWards project here, this actually uses GitHub Actions to do all of that. So this website is rebuilt every time that there is a commit. The software is tested, packages for pip are created basically every time there is a commit or a push into the main branch, and those are uploaded to PyPy. So again, you can do absolutely anything you want within a GitHub action. It's really easy to add GitHub actions to your own repository, and all you have to do is add them into a directory called .github/workflows, and every file you place into this .github/workflows folder will describe a different action, and you can have multiple actions performed per repository. So again, you don't even have to limit it to just one. Now we're going to do it for the repository we've created for the super project in your fork, and we're going to do this starting with a workflow that's really just going to print hello. It's going to sort of demonstrate how easy it is to actually have something run every time you commit. So the first thing we're going to do is have to create this .github workflows directory. So we do this in 2 stages. First we have to create the .github folder. There we are. And then we have to create the .github workflows folder, like that. So mkdir is the make directory command, and then if we do that, we now have a .github /workflows directory. Now the actual workflows are written in what's called YAML format. YAML format is relatively straightforward. I've made a link to YAML format describing it here, so you can kind of go through a tutorial on it. They do have a resources you can read to look at the specification or issues. It's easier to read it when you see it and then sort of edit it from there. I'm just going to bring this back here, and we're going to create a workflow in the YAML file hello_workflow.yml, and YML is what we use to say this is a YAML file. The file itself is going to be this, and to make things easy we're just going to copy and paste this in, and essentially I'm going to explain what this is later once we've actually got this running. So I'm going to copy this, I'm going to say nano.github workflows hello workflow.yaml. Paste that in, making sure it's pasted in exactly. So these spaces are important, as are these like little hyphens as well, and we've finished on an empty line. Okay, now that I've saved this, I'm now going to add this to GitHub. So I'm going to do git commit -a. Oh, sorry, there's nothing to do. I've got to add the file, sorry. Add.github. That's now going to add the file in, so you can see that GitHub workflows hello workflow has been added. Git commit -a, adding in a GitHub actions action. And then I'm going to push that up to GitHub. Okay, now that it's pushed, GitHub will now actually run this action pretty much immediately. So if I rerun this, we can see, looking in the actions, there is now an action that's been written here, and indeed we have a cross on it. I was not expecting a cross. I've probably made an error with this. It says there's a failure, it didn't run, so let's see what this failure is. So again, if I look at the job, I've probably made an error with my YAML. Yeah, I have an error in my YAML syntax. This is what can happen occasionally, particularly when we copy and paste things. So let's just have a see what we've got. And again, I think it's because I forgot to copy and paste the whole file. This is good. It lets you kind of see what happens when things go very wrong. So GitHub workflows hello workflow. Yeah, so again, it's my copy and paste. Sometimes it does this. We're effectively just making sure it does match up exactly with what we have here. The name on, and then jobs is the next line. So the name on, and then look, it's mixed off the jobs there. Okay, so we have name, on, jobs, then we go for this point, then it runs, then we have the steps. Name, on, jobs, print hello, runs on, and steps. Okay. Save it. You can see we've made a modification. Git commit -a, fix the syntax of the workflow, hopefully. We now push this. It's now been pushed up, and we can now look at the workflow. So we go back to the actions. The yellow dot means the workflow is running. Indeed, I can click on it here. It's now going. It's starting the run. We'll see what it prints out. We can see it's downloaded a repository, or the setup Python. It's then run the actions, running the little thing that we had, and it's now completed. And there we have the green tick. So there we are, we fixed the syntax, we have a green tick. Green tick means that it ran well. Now if we click on the name of it, as I said, hello workflow, fix the syntax, we can actually see this page, and this basically gives the summary, and it took 20 seconds to run this. It was made from this commit to the main branch. It was successfully ran. And then if we click on the actual job itself, we can see the various steps in the job. So this is where it did things like it was actually setting up Python. So we open it, we can see it was setting up Python here. Here is the checkout. This is where it's actually Git checking out your project. So there's the super project being checked out here. And then the command we actually run in this workflow, which we're going to have a look at in a second, is we just had it run Python print hello GitHub actions to the screen. And you can see there is the output from that command. So this was the only thing we really wanted it to run. And then it really did nothing after it finished. It just cleaned things up. It deleted everything from the machine that was used for it. And then at the end, it just said, yep, we finished, it's completed, and given us a little tick. So just kind of walked you through these pictures here. Now the workflow file, which we use to describe the workflow, has several sections, and the syntax and the commands are described in detail on this web page. So actually you can use this to actually learn how all of these different commands work, how to write your own GitHub actions, etc. To be honest, I tend to start from someone else's and then edit it. So what I'm going to do now is we're going to take you through what this means. So the top of the file, I'm just going to come across here so we can see the file. .github workflows hello workflow. So the first line is basically setting the name of the workflow. And so this can be called anything you want, and it's the name that you saw when we looked here. So this is the hello workflow. If I go to GitHub Actions, there. Now the next line here, the on, is how we specify that when this action will run, and there are different ways of running it. You can specify different triggers which start their workflow from running. In this case, by saying on push, this means that this action will run whenever we push to any branch in this repository. Now it is possible to limit things. So for example here, we could say on push to the main branch will run it, and on pull request to the main branch will also run it. So this is one, if we used this on statement, it will only run the workflow or the action when we push or pull request to the main branch. Okay, the next line, these are the jobs that will be performed by this workflow, and you can have many, many jobs listed. Each job starts with the name of the job indented with a couple of spaces. Notice the colon we have at the end of each line to say we're going to do that, and the name of the job. So in this case there's only going to be one job, which is this one here, and this job is called print hello. Now the first thing you specify within the job, we say the next lines are within the job because they're indented, so it's a little bit like Python, it uses indentation for scope. So we're going to say this print hello job is going to run on Ubuntu latest. So this is saying we will run this action on the latest release of the Ubuntu Linux operating system. Now we could actually have this run on lots of things. So for example, if you wanted to run on the latest version of Linux, Ubuntu, Windows and Mac, you would use this line. And this would say run on every single one of the latest Mac, Windows and Linux, which is quite cool. Now, each job can have a series of steps, and the steps are performed one after another. And the steps are basically written with these little indentations. And in this case, we're only performing a single step. And this single step is going to use, actually we're performing 3 steps, sorry. The first step is basically going to run a default kind of step, which is to check out the repository that we've linked this action to. The second step is to set up Python, and then the third step with this run is the thing we've written ourselves. This is saying just run the command python-c print hello GitHub actions, and this python-c print hello GitHub actions is literally just a way to get Python to print to the screen. So if I just copy this and I paste it to the screen, you can see it just prints hello GitHub Actions to the screen. Now these uses are steps which people have already written for us so that we don't have to write them ourselves. And indeed you can find a whole collection of those uses. Where are we? Here. And indeed, very nicely, in this case the setup Python is a script which is here. This is the setup Python and we're using version 2 of it. It's on GitHub as well, and you can actually look at what this is doing in terms of installing particular versions of Python. And you can even do things like, say, specify exactly what architecture and what version of Python you want to be using. And you can do things in like even more complicated ways as you go further. All of these uses are sort of pre-packaged GitHub Action packages, and you can find all of them linked here. So there's like tons and tons and tons of them for setting up lots of different operating systems, lots of different software packages, environments, tools to pretty much do anything you could think of doing. So I would always recommend that before you try and write a GitHub action to do anything complicated, you basically look through and try and find an existing GitHub action from a project you like and use their action as a starting point. So okay, we've kind of shown you just the brief kind of thing of this is what GitHub Actions is. Really, really simple to use. You just basically create a workflow file and then you add the actions in one after another as steps. Do take a look at other people's ones as a starting point because it's difficult to, everyone will want to do something different. So find something and start from that. And indeed what you can do is you can look at that GitHub Actions documentation and the list of commands I showed you before and the list of available actions. And indeed we have this exercise here where I say have a go at editing your hello workflow.yaml and maybe try and make the action run on Windows, or adding commands to run in whatever programming language you want, maybe a hello world or something from your project. Really just have a play with it and see what you're doing. Equally, what you could do is to do this exercise, take some inspiration from GitHub Actions configured for different repositories. So maybe look at your favorite program on GitHub and see, what does their GitHub action look like? There's also this lovely repository here, which is showing awesome actions. This is a collection of awesome GitHub actions to do various things like build GitHub pages sites, build front-end services, deploy stuff, databases, and tutorials and everything. So you can take a look through this. And then also what we have, losing my tabs now, is I said we have this project here, which I showed you before, the MetaWards project. This uses GitHub Actions to do what I said, do all of the tests, build the website, deploy and package everything. And so again, have a look through this and see how we're using on push to main and devel and on pull request on main and devel, running this on a variety of different Python versions and operating systems, doing different things for different operating systems and setting the compilers, messing around, sorting out all our Python dependencies. You can see you can go into quite a lot of detail as you go through, and then running various Python scripts and even doing things like building the pip packages on like Linux and on Windows and on Mac. So there's lots of things you can do and use these like files from other people's projects as kind of inspiration to show what to do next. Now, because obviously you're going to play now, I can't sort of play for you. I'm just going to let you have a go at this. And then once you've finished having a play, please click next to go to the next section of the workshop. And I look forward to seeing you there.